I've got my bail cut out of my sterling sheet. So what I'm going to do now is fold this in half. Because it's so thin, you could fold it using your fingers, but I'm going to use a pair of parallel pliers. And these are parallel bail making pliers. And that'll just mean as I'm forming it, it will be a nice even curve that I get. So I'm going to use the bigger of the two pieces. We're just going to pinch this so it's in the centre. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then we can just start, oops, just hold that a little bit further back. Then we can just start bending this round. If you don't have a pair of bail making pliers, you could use something like a pencil, or you could use the handle of your scribe. You basically just want something that's not tapered, so you're getting this in a nice parallel shape. Okay, so we've got that pinched across now. Take those away. What we need to do is just fit this to the locket so we know where to drill through this bail. So I'm just going to open it out very slightly, just using my fingers. I'll pop that down for a second. I'm going to hold my locket together and match the holes up, so checking from the top that they're matching up. They look about right. And then I'm just going to fit the bail over the top of the piece. You might just need to open it out a little bit more. So I'm just going to fit the bail to the top of my piece. Make sure that's going to be about even. And what I'm going to do now is just use the edge of the bail to make a little mark where it was sitting. So you can see that's just made a little mark on the silver there. I'm going to take this apart, and then what I'm going to do is hold the bail so I know that it was in the place that I wanted it to be, roll this back, and quite handily it lines up, the widest part of the bail lines up with the edge. So what I'm going to do now is just open this out a little bit more, pop my bail onto the top of my bench peg, and then I'm just going to line this up. So I've got the largest part of the bail lined up with the edge of the locket, and what I'm going to do is just use my scribe just through that hole, and then I'll make a dent on the bail, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. So it's a little tiny mark, so you might not be able to pick it up. It's just made a little tiny mark on the bail. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead, make that a little bit bigger. There you go. So you should be able to see that there. I'm going to drill through, and then I'm going to open out the hole a bit like I did for the locket, and then I will do the same on the other side of the bail so that we've got a hole that runs parallel through the bail, and then we can fit it to the locket and flare out the tube. So I'm going to start with a smallish size drill bit. I'm just going to drill straight through. It doesn't take much to drill through this gauge of metal because it is quite thin. So we'll just go up a couple of sizes. And again, what we're doing here is just opening this hole up so that we're able to get the tube through it. Okay, that's through. Oops. And go up to the largest drill bit size that we've got here. And that's gone through. Let's just check it's gone all the way through. Yep. Okay, so that's still going to be slightly too small for the tube to go through. So again, what I'm going to do is just open that up with a ball burr, and then we can test to make sure that the tube goes through, and then we can repeat that on the other side. The other side's a lot easier to do because when we start to fold it back down, we can use this hole that we've already pierced as a guide, or that we've already drilled through as a guide. So we'll just come back through here with a ball burr. There we go. Just going to manoeuvre that so that the ball burr can actually drop all the way through because it didn't go quite through. There we go, that dropped all the way through. So you can see that that's opened the hole up. We'll just check. And that tube will fit through nicely. So I'm just going to pop this back onto my bail pliers again. Make sure it's in the centre and just pull that down. Make sure that's about parallel. You just need to tweak that. You want it to be as close as possible to equal. So you want to really have the points at about the same height. So I'll just push that side down. Okay. That's pretty close. So what I'll do is just hold that on my bench block. I'm just going to use a drill bit to go through. Just make a little dent there. And I'm actually going to use this to just leave enough of a dent so that the drill bit will catch, because what we'll do is just drill straight through this hole to get through to that other side. And again, I'm just going to start with a slightly smaller drill bit just to start off. So we want to make sure that we've got that going through nice and straight. Okay, that's the first hole drilled. Let's move up to a bigger drill bit. And just keep a nice tight hold on this so it doesn't spin. There we go, that's that through. And then we'll just go through with a ball burr. I'm just going to use a slightly smaller ball burr than I did to start with, because I don't want to open this top hole up any more than it already is. So we'll just go through, and we're just going to go through the bottom. There we go, that's through. Stop that spinning to bring that back out. And what we should have now is the bail so that the tube will fit through, and we'll be able to flare the edges of the tube out to capture the locket in between the bail. So I'm just going to take these rough edges off with a buff stick, and then we will rivet the bail onto the locket. You can see that we've now got the bail over the top of the locket, and we've got the tube, which is going to form the rivet, going through the bail, both sides of the locket, and back out of the other side of the bail. You can see that it's a little bit closer to the locket on one side than the other. That's okay, we can just squeeze that in, we can just pinch that in a little bit because this metal's nice and soft. So we'll just pinch that in a little. You can just use your fingers. And you see that is going to be closer to the locket. Once this is riveted as well, it will just pull it in a little bit closer. So I'm going to mark my tube, and then I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to rivet this. So basically I'm going to be flaring the edges of the tube out so that they create a tube rivet to keep the locket together while still allowing it to swing open and closed. So we don't need too much left on each side. Again, With a tube rivet it's quite good because it just flares out all the way around, so you've got quite a lot of metal that you can push out. That's about right on that side, so that's probably about 1 or 2 millimeters out. You can always adjust it if needs be by filing, but I'm going to mark this side, so we're going to be taking about the same amount off. So that looks like it's going to be about the same on both sides. I'm going to cut to the inside of this line and that will make it a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to take this out and then I'll pop it onto my bench pin so that I can actually cut it. So we've got that on the bench pin, and I'm going to cut to this side of the mark so we leave ourselves a shorter piece, and that'll go back through the locket and the bail, and then we can get that riveted. I'll rescue that piece of tube and then we can use that to create our bail. There's a little burr of metal left on the end here from sawing, so I'm just going to take that off using a buff stick. You just want this to be a nice flat edge before you start riveting. It doesn't take much, it's not much metal. There we go, so that's just gotten rid of that little burr. And the other end, I'll just give that a quick once over. There we go. So that should now be fine to start creating our rivet. So I'm going to put this all back together again. Just need to get that lined up. Oops, I'm just going to turn that around. You can see the tube coming through the other side. Might just take a bit of a wiggle. There we go. And then it's just going to pop out this side. The good thing about this is the tube is quite nice and tight through the centre, through the actual locket, so that's going to help to hold it in place. So what I want to do again is just very slightly pinch this bail together just to make sure that it's going to be in a nice position to rivet. There we go. So you can see that's a nice shape from the side as well. And then all I'm going to do is rest this on the side of my bench pin, on the metal part of my bench pin, or you could do this on a steel block, but because it's so small, doing it onto this part of the bench pin will be fine. I'm going to put my centre punch into here, into the end of the tube, and then I'm just going to give this a few taps with my hammer on the top, and this will start to flare the tube out. So I'm going to continue to hammer down onto my centre punch, and that'll continue to spread the tube out. Unfortunately, because I need to support this, it's going to be really difficult for you to see, but by hammering this down, it's because it's slightly tapered, it starts to force the tube out at the top. You just need to get it at an angle that you're not going to distort the tube through your piece. Okay. This side has started to flare slightly, so I'm just going to turn the piece and then repeat from the other side. So again, I'm supporting my locket. I'm just going to use my centre punch, and then I'm going to start tapping the top of that, and that will start flaring out this tube rivet. You can see that's actually started to flare that out from the top. Again, I'm just going to turn it back across, turn it back over to the other side and just give it a few more taps. You'll probably find that you have to repeat this a few times, just turning it backwards and forwards, just to make sure that you've got both ends evenly flared and that it's nicely locked into place. By keeping turning it over, because you're going to be hitting it against your metal bench peg or steel block, it'll keep both sides of it flat as well, both sides of the rivet. Okay, just going to give it another few taps just to make sure, because we don't obviously want it to pull out from the bail. And I think one more turn and we should be done. So there we go. It's a bit difficult to see because of the angle, but the outside of the tube has now flared outwards. You could continue to just hammer that so it comes down completely flush here. You just need to alter the angle that you are holding your centre punch at to do that. But this should keep the bail in place nicely. You can see the other side is flared as well. It's quite a gentle flare, but it's enough to stop the bail from working its way off. And we can see that you can swing the locket open and then swing it back closed again. And because of the way that that rivet is through the entire piece, it keeps it together tight enough that you don't need to have a clasp on here. Obviously, if you wanted to attach a clasp, if you wanted to add a clasp to the bottom, you could use the same process that we did for the hinged locket, which would be to add a piece of tube, a little granule of silver, and then have a wire clasp around that. So what I'm going to do next is just give this a nice satin finish, and then the piece will be ready to wear. That brings us to the end of this course, where you've seen me make two styles of domed locket, one with a hinge and one with a riveted bail that swings open. This is a really challenging course, and you can see that throughout I've had some minor hiccups, but once you can get over those, it's a really, really lovely piece that you can make. You can make it your own by adding different textures, different embellishments. You could stone set, you can have a high polish. It's a really, really great course to try. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you get on really well making it. I'd love to see the photos of your pieces, so please come along and share them in our Facebook group, and I'll see you again soon.